Two gentlemen in my life who know style. It's Blake Price and Cam Robinson, the director of everything.
Oh, yeah, that's what they say about both of us. Yes. Style mavens. Yes.
Common occurrence.
Look at you all geared up. Branding.
Do you work for Elite Prospects?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Would you guys guess
me
it?
where you...
How could you tell? It's right in my contract. Minimum 2 pieces of gear at all time.
Hey, the one thing I've learned in this podcasting digital space business, we're all human billboards, walking, talking billboards. So
when you got logos as good as this, though, of course you wear
like
it.
Elite Prospects.
Right.
Isn't that stylish? Thatcher Demko done for the season, hip surgery. Your reaction, Mr. Robinson?
Not surprised. Last week somebody said that it was all but done for this year and surgery was likely. And I mean, Thatcher is no stranger to hip surgery, right? I believe it was 2015. He had double hip surgery on both labrums there, and at that, before the surgery, he had like 0 internal rotation on his hips, and that was a big deal. To have it, he was putting up massive numbers there at Boston College, despite that. Then he got the surgery, and then he came back and continued to light it up and look really good. So not a death sentence to a goaltender, these labrum surgeries, but like I said, he's definitely familiar with them, and he was basically the only one that was going to really have any chance of slowing this tank down. So it's not good for him, but it will be good for them getting low down those standings and staying there.
It's a hip surgery. It's not a popliteus surgery. They say it's unrelated to the absence next season. I mean, you don't need to believe that. Do we believe that, or do you believe everything's connected here?
I'll let the medical professionals tell me that it's not connected, and we'll take that at face value, because I don't have the expertise to argue otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, it's a career now that has been.
Marred.
I mean, it's not.
But
over.
how about that extension, guys, at 8.5 for 3 more years after this one?
The career's not over, and there's a redemption arc that is possible here. But let's use a more realistic word. The career has been ruined here to this point for Thatcher Demko by his health.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because he's such a talented goaltender. Like, he is really, truly one of the best American goaltenders alive. He pushed really close for a Vezina that one season. I think that if he had stayed healthy, he would have been on that podium a few different times throughout his career. But now, 30 years old, another hip surgery, and just like he said, marred by injuries. He just can't stay healthy for a full season, and that's only going to get more difficult as he pushes into his 30s. So yeah, you hope you get value out of him, because you want, especially even when you're rebuilding, it's not like they planned this rebuild. And they wanted to have someone back there that could clean up some of the errors that are going to occur. But it's just, that kind of, they fell into that. They're like, well, we're going to be bad now, and at least we've got Demko back there that will help a little bit. And you hope that he can get back to that level and just stay healthy and be able to play 45, 50 games a season through the back half of this contract.
And Matt, you're right. The Demko extension is a whoopsies. The Lankinen extension is a thank goodness.
Well, so they're all interconnected, and they're all connected, of course, with our buddy Artur Shilov, who we saw here, if not on the ice on Sunday. And I've said this many times. When they re-signed Lankinen, I thought, oh, okay, that's pretty rich for a guy who has never really been truly a number one for the full duration of a season. But it did come in as reasonably favorable, comparable with some of the other goalie extensions that were signed last year. Now, guys like Joey Daccord have gone on to become number one absolute starting goaltenders, and I'm not sure that Lankinen quite reached that point. But I was under the understanding that when they signed Lankinen, they did so because they saw a season this year of securing the crease, Lankinen and Demko, and then having Thatcher play it out. You had more time. You got to use it on the health file. If you weren't in the playoff race, you had a very nice trade chip there. If you were in the playoff race, then probably your goaltending was a big part of this. And okay, now you're free to move Artur Shilovs. But, now the way it turns out, Cam, they re-signed Lankinen. They haven't really gotten good returns there. They extended Demko, which, looks all the more awful. And they let Artie walk, who's turned into a pretty good goaltender in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you look at it and knowing what we know now, would you rather have a young guy like Artur Silovs in net that you're like, hey, he has number one potential. Maybe there's up and downs. He's a young goalie. It can be a little hectic at times, but you have that piece there that maybe it turns out right for you. You're not looking at Kevin Lankinen and being like, hey, this is the goalie of the future. It's not realistic, right? And so now you're kind of looking up and down that, and you're like, who is the goalie of the future here, right? Are you banking on Medvedev at this point? Like it's a question mark for sure on who you want. They have a lot of pieces in a lot of areas here that you can look at and be like, long term, that's who we want to build around. In net, not so much.
Can you imagine, though, guys, if they had said, okay, we're just going to wait to see how you are this year? He'd be headed towards unrestricted free agency in the summer. Like that'd be it. Thatcher Demko would be done as a Vancouver Canuck, presumably. I mean, unless they signed him for a dirt cheap show me deal for next year.
Yeah,
I mean, that was on the table for them.
And you'd have $8.5 million in cap space over the next 3 years.
If you felt it matters. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter for next year, but the 2 years beyond that, it would matter. Yeah.
Well, and you asked the who is the goaltender of the future question. And I know the Canucks and their fans were super excited about second round pick Alexei Medvedev, the Russian goalie playing for the best junior program in CHL. London Knights. They took him with the 47th overall selection. But I had noticed, Cam, and I don't know how much you followed this.
His second half has not been great.
He has struggled of late. I'm seeing tweets out of the OHL where he is not really on his game with, again, a team that usually wins a lot. 15-11-1 and 879 or 897 save percentage and a 308 goals against for Medvedev. But I guess you as prospect guy is going to tell me it is super early. Don't be at all daunted by any of that, right?
Right? Yes, that's what I'll say. That is what I'll say. And especially with a young goaltender, you do. I mean, I will trust the goaltender guys that they see things in him that they like and they think that he has potential, and it's very raw, right? You don't love seeing guys hanging around sub 900, but in junior hockey, it is often par for the course for a guy who's seeing a lot of action, but he's not seeing that much action, right? Like, it's not like he's played 50 games and it's, like Jack Ivankovic last year. He was hovering around 900 or below 900 and, but he's playing a ton and not on a great team. And then now he goes to Michigan and he's putting up great numbers there. And so you see that track, but so again, very, very young. And if the goaltender guys like him and they think there's something to work with there, I'll believe them. But it was a little rich at the time when they took him there in the 40s. For me, I thought that was a little early. But if he's your guy, then he's your guy.
Yeah, and the other thing we should say there is London is merely the 8th best team in the OHL this year. They're second in their division, Cam. The horror.
Yeah, not dominant this year.
No, exactly. They haven't been as dominant after a Memorial Cup last year. Okay, let's move on to Evander Kane because there's been a lot of flurry there. Reports that Dallas and Colorado are interested, and now from Dollywall that the agent Dan Milstein has been granted permission to facilitate a trade. What's your read on the Evander Kane trade market and file?
Yeah, I heard LA was kicking the tires on him as well, and maybe a couple of teams out in the East potentially. Here's the thing about Evander Kane, and I'm not shocked that there's a number of teams that are interested in him. He plays kind of that heavier playoff style that you're looking for when you're bringing in a winger. Either you're bringing in a winger that's going to be like a one-shot goaltending or a goal-scoring option for you, or you want him to be heavy. And so Kane has that heaviness to him. But he's playing at his lowest full-season goal and point pace since his rookie year right now. He's clearly lost a step with his stride. His 5-on-5 defensive impact is abhorrent at times. And he long kind of has that baggage attached to him as a potential dressing room issue or just, maybe not the most well-loved player in the room. So he has all these things against him. So when you look at like comparables, you look at Mason Marchment, a second and a fourth. Bolivier last year got a second. Brandon Tanev got a second. Kuzmenko with that, that offensive upside as a winger too had a third. I think people are going to be hoping that it's a second-round pick or a quality prospect and a mid-pick, but it wouldn't shock me if it ends up being similar to what they paid to get him in the summer, which is a fourth. If you can do better than that, if you can get a third and a fifth, something like that, I think you're happy. But you never know. It just takes one GM to be like, ooh, there's 4 or 5 teams that are knocking on the door here, and he's the guy we want. Well, all right, we'll give you a second. So that's surely what Vancouver's hoping for.
Hey, does anybody here think it's a failure if they just get a 4th round back for it? Like, I could care less.
Well, I think it's a failure because you committed $5+ million of cap space to him, and it compromised the re-signing of Pius Suter, who would have made you more.
Okay, but you're going back to the original sin. I'm talking about in the now. Is it a failure if you only get a 4th round pick? And my answer is that is no. Like, whatever you get.
You're just going to discard original sin?
In this context, yes.
The here and now you have to salvage.
That's right.
Don't look back.
No time machines. No time machines. You can't fix that.
Yeah. Yeah, don't get a 7th like Daniel Sprong pulled last year or something like that. That would be, obviously.
Well, he was also part of the problem. Daniel Sprong.
Who was it they let go again because they wanted Daniel Sprong? Was it? Oh, Podkolzin. That's right.
Yeah. Podkolzin.
He could be a useful piece.
Yeah, young too.
Got a 4th rounder for him though.
Yeah.
Tyler Myers opened the door a crack to waving his no move last week. How do you size up a Tyler Myers market beyond double extra large and extra long sleeves?
Yeah. Extra long sticks too. I think that there would be a healthy market. I think there are teams that are, have already called and been like, let us know if something changes, if you do decide to move this player, because I think when you're looking at someone who can play defense, who's long, who can play physical. We saw, remember that playoff series against Edmonton a couple years ago? Like he was physical, he was mean, and that's what you want out of Tyler Myers. And I'm sure teams that are looking at their playoff matchups being like, we could use this guy on our 3rd pair. So absolutely, if we were talking about a little bit off there, if he wants to control his destiny a little bit here with the no move and rather than the no trade when that kicks in the summer, is like, hey, yeah, like if it's Florida, if it's Tampa, if it's somewhere really desirable that he thinks he can win, his career doesn't have too many years left on it. I think that there would certainly be a market, Montreal, like there's teams, especially out East. I think there's a lot of teams that would be very happy to part with a pretty good pick or a pretty good prospect to get Tyler Myers.
The use of the young players on this roster right now, we were sort of wondering what the best approach would be, and then fate steps in and sort of helps you out a little bit in a twisted way. Brock Besser gone for a little bit with a suspected concussion, and then you've got the injury to Zibulium as well, which takes him out of the mix. So Lekramaki and Mancini come up. Is there anything else you'd like to see done differently here with the young players? Either in the here and now or by the end of the season, just their usage, being around all this, losing at the NHL level. Should they be playing games here? Should they be playing at the AHL level, having more success? What do you think of the overall treatment and usage of these young players?
Not like the Abbey Canucks are having a ton of success this year either.
They're getting better, but yeah,
they are. But generally speaking, I was fine with them keeping Lekramaki down there, even though he was pointing up pretty good there for a bit of a stretch. Now it makes sense to bring him up. Same with Mancini. It's like he was clearly surpassed on the depth chart by Pettersson and Wilander, and then obviously Zibulium coming in. His preseason flashes seem like a lifetime ago, right? When we've seen him at the NHL, he's an interesting player because he doesn't really fit the mold that you're looking. He's not physical enough or defensive enough to be a traditional 3rd pair guy. He's not offensive enough or dynamic enough to be an offensive guy. He's turning 24 soon. It's like the runways, it's not looking great for him to be an everyday NHLer, I would say. Lekramaki absolutely should be, and I think that you work him into the lineup, just like we talked about early in the season. Put him in opportunities that he can succeed. It's going to be tough to succeed with this lineup generally, but you give him chances, and so you want to find little micro goals of the success. How many shots on goal are you getting? How many high danger looks are you getting? Are you creating off the rush? And we can check those boxes off as we go. They don't have to end up in the back of the net all the time. As far as deployment with some of these younger guys, I'd like to see Atu Ratu get some more looks. I know that the center ice depth chart is getting clogged up a little bit too with Hedl coming back, but at the same time, like this kid, he's done everything you've asked of him, right? He's seeing 12 minutes a night. He's, I think he leads the team in defensive zone draws, right? Like his starts are always in the defensive zone. It's like 40% in the O zone. Despite that, he's above water on, goals for, goals against. He's above water on the Corsi on the shot share. And he wins like 60% of his draws. It's like, so I understand that you need to play some of these older players just to market them and try to sell them and get any asset you can. But then when that time is done, like, let's start feeding the young kids some more ice. Let's get him, let's get Ugrin. Let's start putting them into some better spots and some more opportunities to showcase what they could become. Because for me, I think Ratu has like legitimate 3C potential, and you want that homegrown, right? Like, you want that coming from within.
You still think that, Cam? Because he's been healthy. He's been healthy scratch here, and of course, going back even to when they acquired him, Cam, we were all having the conversation: is he a center? Is he a winger? Well,
I mean, the amount of faceoffs he wins, like he can certainly win a draw. I think that it's been really curious. I had someone reach out to me like a couple months ago too and be like, maybe you should look into this. Like, is there a reason that he's not getting a little more opportunity? Like, is he in a doghouse? Did he do something to Adam Foote? Is that he just hasn't had much of a leash or an opportunity to show much offense? Because he previously earlier in his career and going back to Finland, this is a player who knew how to score. He knew how to set things up. That didn't go away. It might not maximize at the NHL level. And sure, he might. The more likely thing is that he's a fourth liner. But I think that there is a little bit of upside there for him to be a third liner. And it's like, why not test it now? You got nothing to lose at this point. Let's see let's really test the waters here. What can he become?
Guys, he just turned 23, and in his last 74 games, he's played 74 games in the last 2 years. He's got 10 goals and 23 points in those 74 games. Like that, for a 22-year-old, like that's not terrible. Like you
10 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
And that's why.
And he's a plus player. Like find another guy who's played the last 75 games for the Canucks that's a plus player.
Yeah.
No. That's fair. And I also wholly concur with what Cam had to say on Victor Mancini. Like, this is a very, very important stretch of games for Victor Mancini. With Buiam out, presuming he's going to get in the lineup, and I sure hope he will, because, Cam, his last game with the club was the blowout loss to Edmonton, where they moved Wilander to the left side for him. Like, I don't think they're doing that a whole lot going forward.
He didn't look good.
He looked awful. So, look, if they're going to do that again here, then holy cow, does Mancini have to take advantage of whatever carrot they're going to dangle here in his return to the NHL club with Buiam on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. It's important for him to show. He needs to pick a lane, I think, and he needs to reinvent himself as a third pair guy. He has the size. He can skate well in a straight line. Use your physicality, become tighter defensively, and just forget about being kind of that freewheeler puck rushing guy that he was trying to become.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to draft prospects.
Because everybody else has.
This market the Vancouver Canucks, who are out there talking to some of these guys at the top of the draft. Well, Cam, first of all, you tell me, how unusual is it for an NHL team to be seeking out and interviewing, talking to these top prospects in late January? It seems a little early with 5+ months to the draft, but you tell me.
Nah, it happens. Usually it's more like the head scout that's there watching, maybe than the execs they're watching. But having those meetings mid-season, it's not completely uncommon. And I know that Vancouver isn't the only team that's spoken to Keaton Verhoff as well. And I mentioned there in that tweet too that I expect his stock to keep trending up as teams get more face time, and that's because he's a very personable kid. Like one of the biggest things that I appreciate about him is that in his game, he recognizes some of his limitations, and he actively is trying to improve on them in season. We saw it even at the World Juniors. He got better game over game once he got into the lineup for Canada there too. So I do think Vancouver is very high on him. I just, if I had to guess, I would say he would be the number 3 on their board right now. But that's not uncommon, as I had that, the scout poll, and there's a number of teams that had him number 3 on their board. So he's very well looked at.
Is the 1-2 turning into a bit of a middleweight battle here, or cruiserweight battle of two guys that are rounding into form? I mean, we talked about the post World Juniors synopsis for most people. Gavin McKenna's looking pretty good here of late. Is he's responding a little bit.
He's been awesome 2 weekends in a row now.
Yeah. So are we starting to look at really something that's going to be a coin toss right to the very end, with probably the tie going to McKenna based on top end?
Probably, and also name brand. When you're picking one, you want to sell tickets, you want to sell jerseys, you want to give your fans something to be excited about. And McKenna definitely has that name recognition. So if all things were coming down to being completely equal, I think he might get the nod just on that alone. Like I said in that, so I 10 teams, I pulled 10 teams for that. 6 had Stenberg at 1 and 4 had McKenna. One team had Stenberg at 3, one team had McKenna at 4, but otherwise it was so it's razor thin, those margins at the top, and then a big gap before we got to Verhoff and Smits and Tynan Lawrence. So yeah, I do think they're starting to go a little punch for punch here too, because Stenberg's he's not putting up big multi-point games, but he's still scoring at the SHL level, which I think one of those is worth maybe 2 at the NCAA. So it is, and McKenna, he has looked very good. He's looking engaged. He's getting to the middle of the ice. He's shooting more, and those
middle
are
of the ice part.
Everything I wanted from him.
And the other thing we should mention is Stenberg with Frölunda. They're still playing Champions League too, right? Yep. If I'm not mistaken. Yep. So he's playing some pretty top competition across other European sides on top of playing in the Swedish men's league. Just back on and Mike, can you put that graphic up of the Elite Prospects composite list from the other thing we should mention, because as Campbell noted, this is not an exact science. Those names towards 15 to 20, fair chance one of those guys shakes down to where the Canucks' second first-round pick is with the Minnesota selection. So familiarize yourself with that sort of area of the draft going forward, because there's always a guy or two that falls, and somebody late in the first goes, oh my God, I can't believe he was available when we selected. Anyways, that's an aside. I want to get back to Verhoff for a second, because we talk about McKenna and Stenberg. Verhoff this past weekend, goal and assist, goal and 2 helpers, both of them victories. We have a Canucks fan here who has done a side-by-side comparison. I want to bring this tweet up. There you go. Verhoff, 17 years old, playing in the NCAA, 17 points in 22 games. Werenski, at the same age, 25 points in 35 games. Those are very similar PPGs, Cam. Tell me, is there any comparison to be made beyond just the statistical output as a 17-year-old in the NCAA between Zach Werenski and Keaton Verhoff?
Not a ton stylistically. The big difference there is that Zach Werenski can fly. Like he can skate. Keaton Verhoff, I watched those weekend games. The flashes are there. He's so big. He's raw. He has offensive awareness. He knows but his feet are a bit heavy. And when he lugs the puck up ice, it is lugging the puck up ice. He kind of lumbers up there. He doesn't have that ability to explode through holes. There was one play where he, took it from behind the net, his own net, carried all the way up the ice, gained entry into the zone, and was clearly going to do that little back slip pass to the guy standing at the blue line who just inside the zone, and the opponent read it, but he did it anyways. And against an NHL team, that's getting picked off, and we're going 3-on-1 the other way with, or maybe 3-on-2 with a forward back. But it worked. And then he ends up getting a secondary assist out of the play because he moves over and it's one-timed in. So he just doesn't have that dynamicism that he can really explode through pockets and really create for himself. And that does concern me. It does. Like, I look at a guy like David Jurasek, who we were really high on at EP in his draft year. He's struggling to he's already been moved once. He's struggling to make the NHL because the feet are a little slow, but he's also a pretty lazy player. And I won't say Keaton Verhoff is. You look at a guy like Carter Yakimchuk, another big guy who could really score in the West. The feet just weren't great. Again, he's going to probably have a difficult time moving up into the NHL level too. So I think Verhoff's better than both those players. I do. I think that he's smarter defensively. I think he's really engaged. I think he'll be a good defender. But, at best, I think we're calling him an average NHL skater, where Zach Werenski is a burner.
So is it first pair or second pair upside for Verhoff as you see it?
You got to say it's first pair, just because it is all around game with that size on the right side. I do think that there is top pair upside, but I went back and forth with some scouts on this, is that, like, for me, I look at a guy like Chase Reed, who is 6'3", and skates, demonstrably better than Verhoff does, and maybe doesn't have the same tools defensively long term that Verhoff will have, but offensively, I think that he has the goods. He doesn't have as big a rocket as Keaton does, but his playmaking ability, his skating is certainly a class ahead. That for me, I'm like, that's the guy I look at, being like, he could be a power play one guy and a top pair guy ahead of a kid like Keaton Verhoff.
So let me ask this question, and very unlikely, but I just want to throw it out there, because I have so many Canucks fans telling me, even if we finish last, there's no way we're going to win the lottery. You guaranteed we're going to pick third. If they're on the clock at number 3 with the 2 forwards gone and Verhoff as the consensus, is there any merit to moving down a couple of spots, picking up an asset and taking one of these other prospects?
I mean, if you want to go defense, right, you could slide back 2-3 spots and you'd be like, we're going to get Carson Karls, or we're going to get Albert Smits, or, we're going to get Chase Reed, and we're going to pick up an asset. You're feeling like that's like a 95% success rate that you're going to get that. And if you don't, well, maybe we get Caleb Malhotra, or we get Tynan Lawrence, and now we fill a center need. So for sure, I think that would be definitely there's something worthwhile there, and especially if a team wants to pay you something worthwhile to slide back. It would be surprising to me if that's what Vancouver did. They don't tend to do those creative things. And it's you don't see teams really slide out of lottery spots too often.
That's it. You don't see, there have been we looked at it one year. There have been principally few trades with top 10 picks in the NHL draft. It's really too bad. They really ought to take a page from the NFL guys.
Before you go.
Or the NBA even too.
Yeah. Oh, they trade the pay all the time. It's great. It's great theater.
Before you go, dig back into your prospects memory banks a little bit as to what you originally thought when you saw Shane Wright and what you see from Shane Wright right now.
Yeah.
And would you be at all inclined to pursue that player for a rebuild in Vancouver? Again, it seems unlikely those two would dance in a trade. Not sure that the Canucks have what the Kraken want.
Yeah.
But if you could entice them with Garland plus for Shane Wright, would you do it?
100%. 100%. For sure. Absolutely. Shane Wright is a good player. There's a lot of talent there. And if the talent offensively doesn't come along like you'd hoped, like it unlikely will from when he was a 16-year-old, but even your expectations for him now as a 4th overall pick, if that doesn't come, I still think he has a lot of value for you as like a two-way guy, because he does have good two-way acumen. He's a competitor. I would 100%. When his name kind of started floating around out there, is that the Kraken want a true first liner. And I don't think Connor Garland checks that box. I don't think Brock Besser checks that box. I don't think Jake DeBrusk checks that box for them. I think that they can go big fish hunting elsewhere. So I don't think it's likely, but absolutely. If you can get your hands, those are the types of guys you want when you're rebuilding, right? Is that someone who had high pedigree potential, maybe isn't meeting it just yet, but you get your hands on them and you see what you can turn them into. And these kids don't forget how to play, right? It's still in there for them.
Again, this week, he is the mayor of Wrightville. In fact, I think we should just relocate Wrightville's City Hall.
Oh, really?
To Cam Robinson.
He's the rightest of the Wrightville.
He's the rightest of the rights.
Yeah. Get a little extension on my place here.
Is that right with a W, or is that right without a W?
Yeah, Shane Wright, Shane Lowry.
He is right on right, and he is right on most everything else he said here. Awesome stuff, Cam. Thank you for this, my friend. Until next week.
Appreciate it, boys. Talk soon.